We could have said ladies first, and that would have worked as well. So obviously, I'm Michelle Swardensky. First of all, thank you for coming. It is almost spring out there. It is beautiful tonight. You came to be in the library, and I truly do appreciate that. I have served on the board for 4 years thus far. It seems like I just got on the board, and so I'm a little surprised that it's been 4 years already, and I still really enjoy it. I grew up in Neenah. I have 2 children in the district. I have a 3rd grader and a 6th grader, both girls that keep me hopping. During the day when I'm not doing school board, I'm an attorney. I'm a partner over in a firm in Oshkosh, and I do family law, lots and lots of garden ad litem work, and so I go in and out of schools in 7 counties all day long, and I am so lucky to do that job. As far as the school board, when I first decided I wanted to get on school board, I was still working at Dorenzo and Bomir over here in Neenah. And my boss said to me, "You do divorce law. Is your bullseye not big enough?" And it made me laugh because I didn't think of it as a negative thing or a bad thing. I didn't think about the number of people that would perhaps have uncomfortable or difficult questions for me. All I thought about was, I believe in public education. Public education made me who I am today. It made me accomplish what I've accomplished this far, and hopefully it will continue to help me accomplishing the things that I can with my life, and that my daughters will with their life. And so I was just excited at the very opportunity. And that hasn't changed. In 4 years, that hasn't changed. It has not always been easy. In fact, I'd say sometimes it's been much more difficult than I thought it would be. But I'm absolutely passionate about education. I'm passionate about this community. I'm passionate about our kids. And I'm passionate about our staff. I mean, I still have teachers that were my teachers from grade school that I still reach out to because they changed my life. And so I love being on the board, and I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to do it again. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for having us yet again, and thank you, community members, for coming. I know about half of you already know who I am and know how I think and what I likely might say. For the balance of you, thanks for giving me part of your evening. I would just like to quickly let you know that I'm a carpenter by trade, which gives me a line of thinking that's kind of outside of what you consider to be mainstream education, kind of some outside of the box ideas. I became involved with our school board when my son attended kindergarten. He graduated last year. In 07 and 08, for 7-8 months, I filled a vacancy of another board member and then ran unsuccessfully after that. I've run a number of times since and haven't been elected. My goal is to affect change, and I can do that by being elected, or I can do that as I have for the last 13 years and continue to attend the board meetings, see what's going on around our schools, and offer feedback from other community members and at meetings. So to me, the success of the election outcome is not the number of counted votes, it's whether or not at the end of the cycle I've affected some kind of change. So enough about myself. I would like to actually talk about my fellow candidates because I'm a crummy politician, and which is perhaps why I don't get elected. As a politician, though, I should be telling you that there's a reason I'm better than all these people, but I'm just so thankful we have community members who are running. Mr. Garcia ran as well before. He threw his hat in the ring and was interested, and like me, he didn't get elected the last cycle, and it takes a lot of courage sometimes to, have public know that you tried and this didn't work. And to Mr. Call, who ran previously, stepped off the board and has, by the grace of God, said to us, goodness, I can't do without this, I'm back for some more. We have Mr. Swardensky, who has filled the vacancy to begin with like I did, ran for the board, and has since stepped up and been willing to, for no particular compensation or any logical reason, take the president's job on. A whole bunch of extra work at Agony for no particular reason at all. And we have Mr. Thompson, who we're fortunate enough will run again, who spent a decade or more as our board president, and he kind of ran because a friend of his said, hey, you might be good at this. And so when this is all said and done, I guess what I want to leave you with is we've got 5 people sitting here that are speaking to you this evening, and any of them are going to be good board members and help the community as we have all along. With any luck whatsoever, I'll be elected to the board and be helping in that regard. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. My name is Scott Thompson. Got 3 kids. Well, kids. I've got 26-year-old, 25-year-old, 21-year-old. All 3 of them went all the way through the district from kindergarten to graduation. My background is I was an executive with Avalon Papers for 15 years in sales and marketing. and then I was a professor at UW-Oshkosh for 4 years, teaching marketing and consumer behavior and assorted other stuff. And right now I'm retired. I've been on the board 12 years. I was board president for 10. The last year I've been at-large member, and my first year I was as well. And I'd like to echo kind of what Tom said. It's thank the other folks that are up here. My hat goes off to anybody that's willing to serve a community in a role like this, or any of the other types of public service jobs that are out there. Certainly not for the compensation. I don't think anyone's up here for that reason. The reason I'm running is I believe, I live in the community obviously, and I believe strongly that quality schools make for desirable and strong communities. And I really think that's, for me, is the absolute bottom line. I feel that our job as board members is we're entrusted by the public to use the resources that they have provided us to do the best possible job that we can, to provide good quality schools, a good work environment for our staff. And really my goal has always been to help get our kids ready to leave us. And I think Neenah, as a district, does an exceptional job doing that. And I'd like to be part of that and continue to contribute to the success of the district.
My name is Marcelo Garcia. It appears that I'm the only one here that has not been in the board yet. Kind of sad that there's not much payment in the board, but I'm still gonna run for that. And with your vote, get elected to that. I do believe that I will bring diversity, cultural diversity to the board. The board should reflect the diversity in the population. Neenah is becoming a diverse city, and it's a great school district. I have been in the area since 2001. I have had several jobs. Some of you may remember me from Dairy Queen. If you have gone to Dairy Queen, I used to manage Dairy Queen at Gay Drive. First day of September 21st, usually a free ball day. That was 2 days ago. This time, that's crazy time. It's pretty hectic. We need to work really hard those days. I have also been involved in the community. I volunteer for the Parks and Recs of Fox Crossing. For those who don't know where Fox Crossing is, it's formerly known as Town of Menasha. I have also co-founded and was a board member of Casa Hispana, is referral center right now hosted by Goodwill, because I believe that the community needs to have some centers where migrants are welcome and being guided to this community. I have also worked for the Neenah School District as a ELL paraprofessional, and with the Menasha School District also as a ELL paraprofessional, and I have taught Spanish for foreigners. And I hopefully after April 4th, be one of the board members for this great district of Neenah School District. Thank you.
Hi, Pete Call. Again, everybody else, thanks for coming, taking time out of your busy schedules and coming listening to what we've got to say. Hopefully somebody says something that you might grab a hold of and make a decision tonight or in a week and a half. As I said, I've been on the board before 7 years and back again. I had nothing else to do on Tuesdays. No, I'm just kidding. Born and raised here, went through school, my wife did, all 3 girls, and I still feel like I've got something to give back. It's always been important to me, give back to the community that you came from, try to, pass it on to the next generation. As they always say, standing on the shoulders of the ones ahead of you, and the generation ahead of us did that. I feel like I've got something left to give back, and I do miss it. It was tough. You got opinions from all sides, but you have to weed through all that, and in the end, it's about the kids. I've always said you got to put the kids first. Whatever it comes down to, that's what it's about, their education. And Scott said it very well. We're kind of like your own kids at home. You're raising them the best you can to leave you. And that's what we're trying to do, to educate our kids the best possible way that we can here. And again, I agree, we do it very well. I wouldn't be back in this community if I didn't think so. And that's for all the kids, not just the kids going to college, not just the kids going to tech school, not just the kids going into the working world. All those kids have to be provided the best education that we can give them. And that comes with making sure we're managing our dollars properly and putting the teachers in the proper classroom so they can affect those kids the best way possible, so each one of their needs are met at their level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, candidates. And I forgot to mention that Margaret Murphy, who was meant to be here, was unavoidably out of town and is not able to be here tonight. So there are 3 people who are incumbent. That would be Margaret Murphy, Scott Thompson, and Ms. Swardensky. The other 3 candidates, Mr. Call, Mr. Garcia, and Mr. Handy, are running for a seat. So I think we'll start with the questions that are going to be sort of broader, and then we'll try and bring them in closer to the district. So the broader questions, we'll start with vouchers, school vouchers, and how you feel about what's your position regarding the school vouchers. And the secondary part of this question is, should we evaluate those schools the same as public schools? So do you feel like students the question here is, what is your position regarding voucher school students? And should they be evaluated the same as public school students?
Good evening, thank you. Regarding vouchers, I believe that we should not expand the voucher program. I can definitely see from private school students and parents the desire to do that, take your money with you. I think the problem in that is that everybody has the free ability to choice. However, public education is provided for the public, for everybody at relative no charge. So when we take that money away from public education, of course, we demean the opportunities of everyone. I will say to some degree, my position was swayed recently, ever so slightly, when I came to the discovery that in regarding our budget, we end up sending not anything even close to 1% out to the other schools. So that seems relatively minor in regards to the possible benefit to those other students, but it does concern me that these kind of things continue to expand, where that obviously could change in the future. And the situation with the other schools being evaluated, I would agree absolutely. If they're getting essentially public tax dollars, they should be seeing an evaluation. Essentially, it's not a pay-per-use situation, so when that money goes there, there should certainly be accountability. I would definitely seek to stop, stall, or rein in the voucher program that's currently in the state of Wisconsin. Thank you.
I have a little different take on it. I believe that public schools need to be competitive with the private schools. And saying that, I do believe that vouchers have a place. I do think, however, the way the current system is set up, that you mentioned the evaluation aspect of it, the private schools are not evaluated the same way that the public schools are. And I think in order for the public schools to be competitive in a voucher system, it's pretty limited right now. But in order for it to be the same, we need to level the playing field. Some examples would include that special ed, the private schools are not required to provide those services, the public schools are. The money that is given in voucher payments from the district to the private schools is greater than the amount of money that we get in aid for those individual students, so every one of them costs us several thousands of dollars. So I think my bottom line is, well, I think there is a place for it. I support the concept, but I do think that the public schools need to be treated the same way, or the private schools should be treated the same way, so that the playing field is equal and allow us to be competitive with those other choices.
The short answer for that question is no to the vouchers, yes for the standard and equal accountability for the private school. The voucher program is not taking more kids from public schools to private schools. the people receiving vouchers, they have already made a choice. They already have the kids in private school. So it's not because we're giving vouchers, they're taking kids out of public school and enrolling them in private schools. They already have. We are just giving a subsidy for them. We all have a choice. If you want to enroll your kid in a private school, nobody's stopping you. But we shouldn't be paying for that. So when they say school choice, it's not like we don't have school choice. We do have school choice. And they're getting public funding for the kids already in private school. And they're not being held accountable as the private schools are that. So we would not want them to spend the vouchers. The vouchers, like it or not, are here to stay. We should be working in trying to reduce the number of vouchers instead of increasing them. So that's my take on the vouchers. It's just hurting the public schools, not doing any favors to our kids. So I'm a strong advocate for public schools, and especially for kids that have special needs.
Again, the vouchers is an interesting situation. Not a big fan when you go public-private, but when it gives kids choices, the parents, a choice to send their student to a better public school than the one they currently have if they can't afford to leave the area, and it gives them a choice maybe to go a couple districts away, I'm all for what's best for that family and that student. If it makes sense for them to use it, in Milwaukee, it worked for a while. Washington, D.C. was a perfect example years ago. It worked great in those areas, but you have to target it to where it's going to work to benefit the lower income and those lower performing students to get them to a better school, to have options. I see vouchers in that way as an option for somebody who may not have one. Based upon where they live and what they can afford, they don't have an option. If they can get a voucher to go, Milwaukee, get out of the inner city, maybe go to one of the suburban schools to get a better education, it works. But again, comparing standards, if you're going public and private, yeah, everybody should be judged on the same criteria. If you're going to be educating students, there should be a standard that both are held accountable to. So we're, again, making sure those kids, whether they're going public or private, getting the best education they can.
So I recently got to go on a tour in Milwaukee at an international baccalaureate grade school. And that was a really amazing thing to see. It wasn't a voucher school, it was a public school, it was a charter school. And one of the things that stuck out to me wasn't the amazing academics, it was the first grade classroom. Our little girl said, "I'm excited to be here because this school is safe and my brother's school is not." I'm not a fan of vouchers, because perhaps for that one child, then they can say, "I'm at the safe school," but we've left behind how many other children who are not. And not only that, we then have put a deficit to the public district where they were at before with not enough funds and made that deficit even greater. Of course, if they're going to receive tax dollars, they should be evaluated the same. There should be accountability. They should have the same qualifications required for their teaching staff. They should have the same entrance requirements. They should have to accept the same kinds of students. Of course they should do all of that. The idea that they should take taxpayer dollars and then say, we don't have to do any of the things that you do in public education, but we can, however, dip into the honey pot and take the money. I don't frankly understand that. I frankly do not understand how it is we can say to public education, it is so incredibly hard to look at your budget. And when you have to be the one sitting there going, okay, we need a social worker, but if we're going to get a social worker, we have to lose a teacher. We have to lose a teacher, we have to expand class sizes. And so that's hard enough. The idea that we're going to make that smaller and smaller and smaller and leave behind the kids who are then left behind, I am absolutely not a fan.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to curriculum kinds of questions. So there are a number in this area asking about, well, we'll talk about class sizes first. And I know that there has been recent, or in the last decade or so, a lot of efforts put towards reducing class sizes. The question that I seem to have just lost is, do you believe that smaller classroom sizes have a positive impact on students? If you do think it's helpful, will you work to implement smaller classroom sizes, especially in the elementary schools? And how do you think the district should address the issue of crowded schools? I think it would be good if you just highlighted where you think we are now and what the potential is to move forward in terms of smaller class sizes, or if you think that that's a necessary step.
Okay. Right now, our class sizes in the Neenah district are the lowest in the valley. Particularly in our elementary schools, we've made a lot of efforts by hiring additional staff and keeping those class sizes small. I support that 100%, and that's based on the feedback given to us by our staff and our administrators. I've been into kindergarten classrooms prior to some of the changes that we made to these class sizes. I think our K through 2 is something like 20 to 22 students. But I was in a kindergarten class one time that had 25 kids in there, and the poor teacher didn't have an assistant helping either, and I mean, it was just chaotic. So I believe in smaller class sizes. We've spent a considerable amount of money and effort keeping those class sizes small. It allows our staff, I believe, to differentiate in terms of their instruction with the different levels of the kids that might be in those classes. So we really tried to hold strong by keeping those class sizes small, and I'm proud of the fact that we have the smallest class sizes in the valley.
Small class size is very important for instruction for our kids. With a smaller class size, it will allow the teacher to give more time for each student, assess the needs of each student, not only to give equal time, but equity, attention to each kid. We shouldn't confuse equity with equality, because equality is giving the treatment to everybody without accounting the special needs of a kid. Equity is treating with fairness and keeping in consideration the special needs, the special attention each kid needs that. And that can only be accomplished with a small size classrooms. It's been tough these few years to accomplish that. Due to mainly Act 10, we have lost teachers. Not sure in this area, but other areas, the size of a classroom has increased. We should look to ways to reduce the class size. That's important to make sure our kids get the proper instruction and the proper attention they deserve early on. So investing early on in the instruction of the kids will avoid a lot of more problems at middle and high school. Instruction has to be the base of the education of the kids in elementary school, and that's very important to have small sizes in kindergarten and elementary school to put a very solid base for middle and high school.
Big fan of smaller class sizes, the lower grades, obviously starting kindergarten. I have a daughter who teaches 4K in a smaller district. And the management of fewer kids in a situation where you've got kids that are just maybe learning to tie their shoes, and some kids that can read, third grade books maybe. So having smaller class sizes at those lower levels really gives the teacher that time to get everybody up to speed where they need to be. As Scott said, Neenah's class sizes, I think, are very, very good, being the smallest in the valley. And again, we listen to the staff, we listen to the administrators and saying, here's really where we need to be. And if another teachers need to be added, at least when I was on the board, we did that. We were very careful, but it is hard with a certain amount of buildings you have to massage those all the time. I don't know how they do that, but they do a phenomenal job of making sure that the kids are not overburdening our staff members, so those staff members can do the job that they do, which is phenomenal, and that we frankly expect. I mean, everybody in this community expects the best, and that's, I think, what we get. And a big part of that is because we keep those class sizes to a manageable level so that the students can perform at their best and our teachers can perform at their best. And that's where you get the rubber meeting the road and the kids come out, the better for it.
It was my first year on the board when we readjusted the target number of kids in an elementary classroom and the range of the number of kids in an elementary classroom. And I was very new on the board, and it was so amazing to be a part of something that I knew was going to make such a change. Because that classroom that Scott was talking about, my oldest daughter, that was her kindergarten classroom. Phenomenal teacher. I won't name drop and say who she is right now. Phenomenal kindergarten teacher. She had so many kiddos in there, some that were sort of barely potty trained, because remember, we didn't have 4K yet at that point. They sort of barely knew where they were supposed to sit on the rug, and then there were the kids who were reading at a 3rd grade level. What kind of impossible expectation do we have for someone? I mean, whether you cut it by 1 less kid, or 2 less kids, or 3 less kids, or 5 less kids, anything that we can do would help. Is there a dream world where I think that elementary teachers say, if we could have maybe 15 kids in each classroom, well, that would be phenomenal. We have made strides. We are, on average, the lowest in the valley. But there are times that we're still right up to the edge. And I know we're talking about the elementary, but the same for the high school. I mean, we have some pretty big classes in the high school as well. And sometimes I feel like we talk about class size, we forget about the high school kids and what it's like to have an English class with almost 30 kids in it, and your ability to be able to speak and truly interact in a meaningful way. So I'm very proud of what we've done at the elementary level. We could always do better, but I'd also like us not to forget to look upward sometimes too in those older grades.
Regarding class sizes, I think that there is definitely a desire to have reduced class sizes. I think we're extremely fortunate for the class sizes that we have within the budget and the logistical situations we have within our district and all others for that matter. I find it difficult to believe that we're going to be reducing class sizes certainly any significant amount or anytime soon. I'm far more concerned about the struggle that we're going to face to keep our class sizes what we would consider to be practical at this time. Regarding the overcrowding that we have in a few of the buildings or a few of the classes throughout the entire district, and of course this is predominantly elementary school that we are speaking of with the class size, with 9 buildings and any multiple of sections in each building. The situation we have is to balance that out. We end up doing what we call redistricting, whereas we kind of redraw the borders of each school, and then some kids don't go by their friends anymore. They don't go to the teacher in the school that they've been accustomed to going to. So in our community, that's wildly unpopular. We do that every so often when it becomes essentially unavoidable or we add grades significantly. And basically, this is one of the difficulties that the board faces, is balancing what the community wants with what's best for the community within the budget that we have. Those are the 2 big things, though. What does the community want, and what would they want if they knew all the details, and what is indeed best for the parties that are going to be involved. So that's a challenge on the class size thing. That is why we let some of those classes run larger than possible. It's to keep all the group of kids together. The small class size obviously is huge for teacher to student contact, which builds engagement, future educational interest, self-esteem. I mean, just obviously positive role models that all your teachers in the classrooms. So we can't get enough of that, to be honest.
Down here. Thank you. I had as you guys were talking about class size, a number of you highlighted the skilled teachers and how important it is for those skilled teachers to be in our classrooms. And there have been a number of questions relative to Act 10 and has staff morale. So I'm going to conglomerate them, and if you have trouble remembering well the things I'm asking, just tell me. Staff morale has been a major issue over the years since Act 10. What can Neenah Joint School District do to help that? Are you aware of the proposals for licensing changes for teachers? If so, how do you feel about making licensing easier to obtain? What do you think about the proposal of lifelong licensing for teachers without a degree in the state of Wisconsin? And is the school district having a problem recruiting for substitute teachers or regular teachers? So it's sort of like, how do you see morale? Are we having trouble recruiting? And how do you feel about the changes in the potential changes or the changes in licensing for teachers?
Definitely, we can talk to school districts before and after Act 10. That's when everything a lot of things changed, and not much has improved after that from our governor to increase the morale of our teachers. Not only teachers, but public employees were portrayed as the enemy of the state and were treated badly, and they continue to be treated that way. Minimal increases, no increases in salary. That led to a lot of teachers to leave the school district, leave the state. We have, and not only at high school, middle school, also at the college level as well. We have lost a very good teachers. They have left the state. Rural areas especially are very hard pressed to attract teachers in there. Not sure how much the district can do to increase the morale of the teachers. I think Neenah's school district and all school districts are doing the most they can to treat teachers fairly. But it comes from higher up. It needs to come a recognition to the teachers. I'm a parent. I'm grateful for the teachers we have here. They are very skillful. They teach with passion. We gotta remember that the job of the teacher doesn't end at 3:15 or 3:20. Teachers work weekends, evenings, and that's not recognized by that. If I had my daughter who wanted to be a teacher, now she doesn't know. And I think a lot of kids in that way. Being a teacher was a dream for a lot of kids. But seeing how the teachers are treated right now, most of them are having second thoughts about that.
I was on the board during all that activity. Changes, ups, downs, sideways. There was a narrow but an age group of our staff that kind of got on the short end of that because they were close to retirement but couldn't quite get there, and we made some changes. But I think being proactive, the district helped a lot of things by doing that. A lot of districts are not as far out ahead with the evaluations and the different pay scales. A lot of our teachers are finally now getting paid where they should be getting paid. They've been high performers for years, but because of the way things were, we couldn't do much. Things have changed. It's a little more of a free agent system out there. But that does give a teacher a little more mobility with some of the retirement benefits they have now being portable. You're not locked in certain ways. Licensing, I couldn't see a lifelong license. To me, that just wouldn't make a lot of sense. A lot of other professions, every so many years, you're just updating, getting current. You start teaching at 23, 24, and you teach for 30 years and never have to renew a license. Things change in 30 years, and I think the licensure should kind of keep up with that a bit. As far as obtaining teachers, I haven't been on the board for a couple years, but when we had positions open, there were always tons of applications coming in. And I have a daughter who is a teacher. She wouldn't do anything else. She loves kids, and kids love being around her. If there was anything else for her to be doing, regardless of the pay part of it, she is exactly where she belongs. And I believe most staff out there, probably the old 80-20 rule, they're there because they want to be there.
Thank you. There was so much in this question. So, first of all, for substitute teachers, that is something that we're hearing statewide. Every conference I've been at, anytime I talk to other supers, and as I said, I'm going to schools in 7 counties, there is a shortage of substitutes. One of the things that I think is that one of our biggest resources is our teachers who retire. We used to be able to retire and then come in as a substitute now. And now there is law that says, no, not so much. You have to wait this many days, and do it 2 days, and that's affect your benefits. Losing out on that benefit. That we should be able to lift some of that red tape so we can get some of our retirees who would like to come back into our buildings, that they could do that on a substitute level. I was not on the board for Act 10, I was not part of the transition and all of that. I was, however, housed with two people who were public employees, two attorneys, but one is a public defender, and at the time I was a prosecutor. My husband started waiting tables. We couldn't meet our mortgage. So it is not that I do not understand the transition of Act 10 and what it did. Now, I was a young professional with a small young family at the time, and so for me it looked different than it did for other people. But as far as morale goes, this is difficult because people do what they love because they love it. They also need to pay their bills, and there's a balancing there. How do we increase morale? That's a two-way street. That's us as a board and administration respecting our staff. That's our staff choosing to say, I'm going to go with you. You know, and I say that, you know, as the board president, I had to speak. I had convocation this year. It was terrifying. Every single staff member looking at me standing on Pickard going, how in the heck am I going to have them hopefully for 1 minute believe that I'm doing this because I really do have good intentions, that I really do want good things, not only for our kids, but for our staff too. And so improving the morale is making sure that we reopen the dialogue, as I think that we have been doing, that we treat each other with respect, and we move forward together with the vision of what we all want our district to be. I'm not going to pretend that it's easy, because it's not. And some people are already there, and some people are not, and we have to work together to all get there. I think I missed half the question.
All right, we can come back.
I think Neenah is incredibly blessed to be filled with as many skilled staff and dedicated staff as that we have. I say that without a question. I think Michelle very nicely articulated our situation with substitute teachers and staff members in general. Can't read down notes. Licensing, I'd have to agree, lifetime licensing in almost any trade would be inappropriate. A scuba diver, and the phrase is a good diver's always diving, a good trainer's always diving. Yeah, it's a matter of staying current, being involved in the industry. You aren't going to learn it from your students. You do need to, get some peer support. So I would think that would be appropriate to continue that. Many other areas do have essentially reductions in the licensing requirements. There's many big municipalities where any simple BA will get you into teaching. If you teach for X amount of years, you get a teaching certificate. So there are definitely different ways to skin the cat if we unfortunately run out of adequate staff. But right now we're fortunate we don't have that. We are kind of a destination district. Regarding the staff morale, I think that we do have an issue with staff morale, and the biggest issue that I see right now is we need to come up with some kind of an outreach, and this is not just on staff morale, it's on many, many issues within the district. We need to have more community members, more faculty, communication with the people who are actually making the decisions. It'd be fun if you all came to a board meeting some night instead of just seeing us once a year here at the forum. It would be just awesome. But the fact is we need to create an avenue that creates an open dialogue amongst our staff and determine, is part of our staff unhappy, all of our staff's unhappy, and determine where it really is, because at this point in time I don't think we have a good enough handle on it to build or mend that bridge right now as to who's in what category.
A lot to these questions, so I'll try to remember as much as I can here. Act 10, I was board president through that whole process. It was the single most difficult thing that our staff has gone through and our district has gone through. I like where we have ended up. I didn't necessarily like how that came upon us and how we had to get there. But I think we're in a really good spot today because of that, and our staff is as well. As far as licensure, I believe we have to have some form of standards, although I would say there should be some flexibility in some of the specialty types of areas, like business tech and some of those kinds of areas. But when you get into the core subject area, I firmly believe that we need to have standards for our teaching staff. As far as morale, we're a big organization, and we have over 650 staff members. We deal with about $80 million in revenue every year. About 80% of that goes to staff and benefits. As a result, a lot of the difficult decisions that we've had to make over the years affect those people, and it has been a challenge. but those decisions aren't always easy. And it's, as a parent, I always had to remind myself that I'm a board member first when I go into any school, although I have 3 kids there and I was concerned about the education that they're getting. It can be a real challenge to be a board member and dealing with some of those issues. I like where our staff is today. Certainly we have pockets of people, I believe, probably that are not happy with everything that's going on in the district. But pick an organization our size out there and you would have similar situations with people that work for those organizations as well. I don't think we're unusual in that case. I do think we've put in place a number of things to try to recognize and reward the outstanding staff that we have in the district, and we continue to do that today.
Okay, the next one's going to be interesting. Relative to the current political climate, which de-emphasizes science in our state, and the example given is the taking information about climate change off the DNR website and reducing DNR staff by reducing scientific staff and scientific research. Do you feel that we are doing enough to promote science in our schools, or is there an impact to our children's education?
Science. I think we're doing a great job with the STEM program, some other programs that have been started out there. But we always can use more, pushing the envelope, getting people to think. I see that's what science is. You have a thesis and you test it. Is it true? Is it not true? Gather the data, find out what's going on. And it's not just for God. It's not just for those. It's for everybody that's interested in it. Same thing with math. You see that a lot. People worry about, oh, the girls can do math. You just have to be told they can. Get out of their way. Politics, I'm not here to discuss politics tonight. This is a nonpartisan position. I'm here to help provide the best education we can for the kids. Whether you believe in global warming or not, I don't think that's part of our discussion tonight. The kids can learn both sides of it and make their own decision. That's what everybody should be doing. Gathering your facts, making your own decision. I'm not here to sway somebody one way or the other on that. I've said many times in our boardroom, when you walk in that door, you check your agendas and your politics at the door. Your job is to look at what's being presented to you by the staff, by the administrators, by our community, and make your best decision that you feel is going to be the best for our kids. And that's what we're doing. And I said, the STEM program at the high school, it's opening up to the younger kids, getting them more involved in middle schools, elementary, so they can see what science is. And it might spark one of those younger kids in pursuing something in the field of science.
We have some of the best staff in science and social studies. I can say that because I had some of them when I was a kid. And I can say that because they have been recognized not only locally, but in the state and nationally. We have the most amazing, I shouldn't say that because people are going to say, no, I don't think the other staff is great. But science and social studies, we are so strong. And we just revamped our social studies program in the entire way that we deliver social studies. Do I think that we're doing enough to push science? Mr. Call touched on the issue of gender. And there's something that happens to young women who believe they can do anything and be anything up and until 6th grade. And then something happens. Their scores come down. They start wanting to be different things when they grow up. They no longer think they're smart enough to be the doctor. They no longer think that they can hack it in advanced chem. That's a problem. That's not a problem only to Neenah, but that's a problem everywhere. And we need to work on that, not only in our district, but everywhere. And we have programs. I mean, Girls Rock and the STEAM programs and the STEM programs, and some of those are geared just towards females, and some are geared towards men and women, or girls and boys. So I think that we could do better. I think that there are some things we're dropping the ball on, but it is a very big issue. And I think that as far as our staff goes, we're in the best of hands. What we're doing to build our girls up and our boys up so that they know you can do absolutely anything. You put your mind to it, because we are going to give you an education that you'll be able to go toe-to-toe with kids who go to Harvard. And maybe you'll be that kid at Harvard And maybe you'll be the scrappy kid from UW Milwaukee who goes to law school with kids from Harvard, and you get better scores.
Regarding science, in the 13 years that I've followed the district, we haven't done very much that has taken away from the level of science that we've been bringing our students. We did see sort of across the board reduction in credits a while back when we were trying to balance the budget, and we were indirectly minimizing how many classes students would take for economic reasons, but we didn't reduce essentially the amount of course offerings that students could take. So I think as far as science goes, could we do more in science? Yes. Could we do more in math? Yes. Reading? Yes. Language arts, the fine arts, foreign languages? Yes. We could always do more. There's a limit in the day that we have. There's a limit in the finances that we have. And Peter summed it up. We're not clearly going to solve the climate change issue tonight. And numerous people in this room have heard me say over the past 13 years, the problem with school politics is there's no room in school for politics. It's really a matter of delivering what we can to the students, the very most that we can bring them for the best interest of the community's financing. I think it's a sad affair that we have taken down climate change information on the DNR website. After all, again, this is information that's publicly disseminated. There's a place to pick it up. It kind of boils back to our last question about Act 10. All the issues with financing in Neenah, Wisconsin, America, you name it, all boil down to a funding issue. And at some point in time, some elected body, desirable or not, ends up making a decision on what we're going to do with the revenue dollars we've collected. So that is why I would encourage everybody, please, to come to the board